one of the first things you have to do is remember to turn the recording back on because I did that once before. But anyway, thank you again, everybody, for being here today. And so we're going to go ahead and get started. We are at the Greater San Diego Association of Realtors, and my name is Kevin Burke, and there is my telephone number, and there is my email address. Now, I am having issues with the telephone. I won't name the carrier, Verizon, but it does not seem to be alerting me of voicemail. So if I don't call you back right away, or at least like after this webinar, if I don't call you back, please call me again, because you're not bothering me. I want to help you. And so I really think there's plenty of business for everybody. I'm not in this to make money. I'm in this to help you be successful at what you do. And so and frankly, this may be our last next week will be our last week before we go on the holiday break, and then we'll see whether or not they renew my contract, but we'll kind of play that one by ear. We'll have some fun with that too. So anyway, so email is always a good idea. I have had a couple of people leave me voicemails that I just got, and I don't know when they were from. But so again, leave me a voicemail. That's okay. But I would follow it up with an email, and that's just the way that it is. So, there you go. Pretty easy to find. And by the way, we're going to be talking about marketing today. And so one of the things that I just wanted to point out, and that is, do you see my email address down there where I have uppercase K, uppercase B, uppercase R, uppercase E? That is intended as it's sentence case. That is intended to make it so that it's easier to read. Now, I'm hoping that you have your own domain name. I'm hoping that you have your own email address. I have this personal thing about, Gmail and stuff like that, but and I have Gmail accounts, right? But I have Google Workspace accounts that are at least a little bit more secure. So anyway, this is how we do it. I taught ePro for many years under Saul Klein, who was just a super guy, and I learned a lot. I think you learn more by teaching. So that being said, on the left-hand side of your screen, you'll see a whole bunch of stuff, and I always say, awards are for things you did in the past. What are you doing today? And so don't worry if you didn't have a good past or whatever. And by the way, it took me 44 years to accomplish the things that you're seeing there on the screen. So I have a broker's license in California, and I do support brokerage firms. I'm not of counsel because I'm not a practicing attorney, but I do consult with quite a few brokers, real estate agents, and things like that. And I think I'm fairly reasonable about that. And then I also have a broker's license in Virginia, where we operate another brokerage. Essentially, we have family in both, and so it makes every trip tax deductible. So if you know what I'm talking about. So anyway, I got my license in 79, if that means anything to anybody. I did get the American Jurisprudence Award in real estate transactions in law school. And you probably won't know what that is unless you're an attorney, but it's like the highest national grade that you can get. And then I do continue to teach the real property law for attorneys. It's MCLE approved credit, continuing education for attorneys at UCSD. And I've been teaching that for about 25 years now. So, they told me 25 years ago that they were looking for a better instructor, but apparently they haven't found one yet. And so on that note, on the teaching side of things, I have had 2 of my classes approved by the Department of Real Estate. And one of those is 5 hours of continuing education on the RPA, the Residential Purchase Agreement, and then the other is 3 hours of instruction, continuing education for the Buyer Representation Agreement. So I've put those forward to the San Diego Association of Realtors, which is my home, and we're going to see if they're going to let me come in and do that. They have to be live, they have to be in person, and that would be kind of fun for me because I prefer that teaching modality. So on the bottom of the page, you see all these things that I've taught in the past. I guess they make me credible. On the right-hand side, then we get into the stuff that's a little more current. So I am chair of last year for NAR, I was chair of Risk Management Issues Committee, West Group. I've been on their risk management committee for many years, probably a decade or more. In California last year, I was the chair of Risk Management and Consumer Protection. And next year, I will be chair of the Legal Affairs Forum. As much as I tell everybody I'm not a practicing attorney, I just can't get rid of the legal attachment that I have. And then let's see, anything else in there? We're probably going to be talking about stuff that's going to appear to be legal. I am not a practicing attorney. I just have no desire. I think they work way harder than we do. In fact, when I'm done with my webinar today, I have a whole bunch of attorneys that are waiting to speak with me about subjects already. So, but again, with you, I want to help. It's not costing you anything. So please feel free to reach out. So, and we'll talk about how to do that in just a second. So, standard of care is my specialty, agents' duties of inspection and disclosure, and then market conditions in San Diego County. And so that means, boy, people are just coming right on in. So our conversation today is not intended to be a substitute for the advice of your broker, nor for that of your attorney. Please consult with them as appropriate. You hired them to represent you, and so I can tell you they want to hear from you. So you definitely need to be speaking with them if you have something like that that's necessary. And by the way, some of you may be newer. Some of the names on our call today I don't recognize. The statistics are that more than half of the licensees in the state of California, and there are 437,000 of them, more than half of them have had a license less than 5 years. So if you feel like you're stumbling along and not sure what's going on, you're not alone. There's a lot of people. Not everybody's like me that's just been around since before time began. But fortunately, I feel like I'm paying back the people that helped me when I got my license back in '79. So I'm here to help. So please ask questions or offer input by utilizing the Q&A button. I do look forward to hearing from you. So you have a Q&A button on your screen. Click on that, type in a message. Nobody else can see it. This is being recorded, obviously. We said that in the beginning, but this is being recorded. But I'm going to upload this onto the YouTube website. But if you have a question, just hit the Q&A button and type your question in there. Nobody else can see the question. Nobody else can see who you are. Nobody else can see your name. So it's completely anonymous. Excuse me. I will read your question or try to make it so that I can understand it. But there's no dumb questions. Just keep asking them. Okay. All right. So this morning we did disclosure, statutory versus contractual. And of course, I've got that all backwards, don't I? I should have said 10 to noon. But in fact, that class didn't happen. There was a technical glitch, and apparently the class got deleted from the queue. So I couldn't get into it. You couldn't get into it. So I apologize. They're working on trying to figure out what happened there. And so film at 11, right? So there, I got that slide right. Okay, now you got 10 to noon up at the top. And then here we are, 2 to 4, Master My Farm. And I'm going to be honest with you. I'm going to tell you some stuff today that are kind of like what most people would assume are trade secrets. I'm going to tell you everything, okay? A good friend of mine, Greg Newman out of San Diego, the top agent with the Rock people for probably at least 20 years that I knew of. And I asked him, I said, why do you teach people all of your secrets and things? And he says, well, because it makes me good on my game. I have to get better next year. Plus, less than 1% of them will actually apply what I tell them. And I think that's sad, because I'm going to tell you stuff that has worked. I'm a practitioner like you. I'm not, a fluffy guy that makes stuff up and rah-rah and all that kind of stuff. I actually do what I talk about. And so Greg was right on. And so today I'm going to tell you a couple of things that, and again, this is going to take some work. Okay. And it's, I know real estate work is a 4-letter word, but I'm going to tell you something. You can't help but make money. And that's kind of what I want you to do. And I probably should note, I've never thought about the money. I've always thought about how many units that I was doing. And so how many people am I helping rather than how much money am I making? Because I always figured the money was going to follow. Okay. So then on Tuesday, we're going to do the how to create the winning listing presentation. That one's fun too. This is all about walking in the door. What do you say? What are the key points of that? And then, you circle the house. I always go left to right. And when I walk out of there, I'm going to get every single listing that I want to get. And if I don't want the listing, if I'm not going to get along with that owner, I'm not going to take the listing. I have other things to do, and hopefully I will help you. Rather than coming on, Robert Ringer said, when boy comes on like hungry dog chasing squirrel, boy doesn't get girl. And so it was. I'm sure I can get in trouble for saying that in California, but his case, his sense was a good one. People can smell the fear. So you got to be calm. You got to be composed. You got to be comfortable with what you're doing. And so that's what we're going to talk about on Tuesday morning. And then in the afternoon, yippee, I get to talk about the new and revised forms. On December the 19th, we're going to launch the new ones. We'll revise the old, the old ones will have revisions to them. I think we've only got one new form. All the rest of them are revisions. But I'm going to show you what everything is. And there you go. Okay. So that being said, so I always started with member benefits. And so thank you for joining us for our discussion of how to master my farm. And of course, that's in real estate. And so when I say master my farm, I'm not talking about, planting corn or maize or whatever. I'm talking about actually, working either a specific area or a specific group of people. And we'll talk about that. So I'm going to tell you, please stop paying for leads. You really, listen, I don't pay for leads. I did one time. Oh God, it was costing me $1,800 a month, but I bought the granddaddy of all of them. And that went on for about 9 months. And I sold one house off of that. And, it's just, I know it's an industry out there and I know everybody wants to do that and tell you that they're going to give you stuff, but nobody's going to give you anything. I think you should generate your own leads. I really do. And I think you can. And so, I over my practice, when I was teaching in the 3 colleges, some of them simultaneously, I would always sit down at the coffee shop on the corner of 15th Street and Camino del Mar. And from that, my roost, as we say, I ran town hall. I mean, everybody, I was known as the mayor of Del Mar. That's where I live. And people would come in all the time looking for me. And so, eventually I had to get to a point where I stopped doing that because I couldn't get much done. And they were always coming in and asking me for help. But, I want you to be the mayor of your town. And we're going to talk about that. Okay. So what is My Farm? My Farm is a place where you want to do systematic, continuous, long-term business, real estate business, a place where you want to be consistently busy and making money and everybody knows you. Again, you want to be the mayor of your area. Okay. Now we're talking about a geographical farm, but we're going to spin this into the sphere of influence farm in a minute as well. So, and I want you to make a profit. And I think frankly, this today is probably one of the least expensive things that you can do in producing revenue and selling homes and doing things like that. Of all the other stuff that everybody's trying to sell you, I'm not trying to sell you anything. Okay. So it's not a one-day deal. It's not, you signed up for a newsletter and you did it for 3 months and then you canceled it because nobody even called you. It's going to take a year. It's going to take 2 years. I had a veteran real estate agent come to me and say, he was a heavy hitter at one point, and he comes to me and he says, I think I need to hold an open house. I go, okay, go hold that one open over there. And he goes and he holds the open house. About an hour later, he comes back into the office and, isn't that great? My phone is looking up what I'm talking about. So anyway, an hour later, he's back at the office. I said, what's going on? He says, well, nobody came in. I said, you've been gone for an hour. And he says, yeah, but it didn't look like anything was going to happen. It's overcast and all that. And I went, well, you know what? You're just, it's your personal farm, buddy. It ain't working for you. But you got to spend time at it. It's going to take work. Okay. And so we'll talk about open houses and different ways to do that. So, but it's not a one-time deal. You got to commit to anything you do. You have to commit to it for at least a year. And when we talk about open houses, I'm going to quote Joe Jelly here in a minute. But so what does that look like? So there are different types of farms. All right. So I'm sure you've heard it 1,000 times, 100 times, whatever. You have a geographical farm, you have a sphere of influence farm. We're going to dab into each one of them. And I promise you, this is not going to be stuff you've heard before, but let's talk first about the geographical farm. And so it's geographical farm. My advice would be it's going to be where you live. Okay. And so, or where you want to live. I wouldn't get overwhelmed by doing too much. I would pick an area, whether it's where you live and where you want to live, and then I would focus on it and I would commit to it. Okay. And so so where you are willing to commit your time. Okay. All right. Now, so for example, let's say everybody wants to live in La Jolla. I personally don't, but I love Del Mar. In fact, my website, one of my websites is ilovedelmar.com. So, but I love Del Mar. And so, but I decided one day that I was going to live in Del Mar, and I was buying property in Del Mar and doing all kinds of stuff. And people would tell me, they would say, "Hey, how can you do that? You're not supposed to be able to do that." I go, "Why not?" "Well, you're in real estate. You don't make any money, and property's overpriced and all that kind of stuff." Folks, this is going back now almost 40 years. Okay, and so 30, 35 years, and so it's still overpriced. It's still difficult to buy. At some point, you had to make a decision to step in. So I have this nice ocean view. It's 800 square feet. It's not a big house, right? You got to go outside to change your mind, but it's not bad. Okay. And so, but I just made that decision one day that that's where I was going to live, and that's where I'm living. And so you've got to do that. And so I have people that you're living in, let's say you're living in El Centro, but you want to farm La Jolla. Unless you're only going to do mailing pieces, I'm going to tell you, really the successful agent is the one that actually spends time in their farming area, the area that they want to commute to. Okay, but from El Centro back and forth every day, I think that's going to be a challenge. But hey, you know what? I'm good with it. I commuted from Tucson, Arizona. I mean, I just decided that I just didn't want to live in Arizona. It's hot, it's yicky, and all that. And I actually walked into a real estate office with a franchise that I had started in Tucson, and I asked the guy, and he was from Arizona, he's from Tucson, and he was a real estate agent there. Now he's a real estate agent in California. And I said to him, what's the difference between real estate in Tucson and real estate in San Diego? And he says, there's more zeros in my paycheck. And so I thought for a second, I thought that was pretty funny, a pretty clever thing to say. But I think it was right around that point that I decided it was time for me to make the move, because I knew I was killing it in Arizona. So if I was killing it there, I could probably kill it here too. Okay. All right. So, but when I started in real estate, folks, just like some people here today, I didn't have anything going on. I was busy. I graduated. Yeah, I'd graduated, or I hadn't even graduated from college yet. I started a little bit late, and I was doing other stuff. I had another job and all that kind of stuff, and I just started doing real estate. And so, but I went to every class I could get my hands on. Now, this is a secret. Okay, put a pin on this. Okay, so I went to every class I could get my hands on for the first 5 years in my career. All right. And I was, I didn't have a lot of money. And so I couldn't afford to pay for any of this, but I was definitely going to go. And so people would call me on the phone, real estate agents would call me on the phone. And they would say, how are you making all this money? And I said, I thought everybody did that. I mean, I thought everybody was making that kind of money. Okay. And so, but where was the money? Why was I making that money? And the reason I was because I was going to classes and I was learning things. And again, the free stuff, because I couldn't afford to pay for stuff. And we didn't have people selling us leads and stuff like that. So, everything I did, I was learning new things as I went along. And then the transactions just kind of followed me. So, and I think you'll find that to be the case with yourself as well. And I'm preaching to the choir because you're here today, right? And so, but where you can realistically be, all right, so very visible. So again, my example of El Centro versus La Jolla, how easy it is going to be visible. Now, listen, I probably at times in my life I couldn't afford to buy a cup of coffee in La Jolla, but I can tell you I had an agent that I was management at 3 of the largest brokerages in San Diego, and I had this one agent, and he says, I'm just not making it. I don't get it. And I said, okay, so, what do you want? What do you want to do? And he says, I don't know. I really don't know what I want to do. And of course, and it's like, he's 50 years old. So I figured about this point, he needed to figure out what he wanted to be when he grew up. But I said, okay, well, tell me what your day looks like. And so he says, well, every day I go down to the cottage. Now, the cottage is, or maybe was, a coffee house in La Jolla. I think it was on Eads. And he would go down there every day. And he says, I would sit and have coffee every day. I had this one table that I always got and all that kind of stuff. Now, folks, I'm leaning up to what, you got to, this is what you got to do. And so he says, I go there every day and I read my newspaper and I do all that kind of stuff. And I said, okay, so do you wear a badge? And he goes, no. And I go, why not? He says, no, nobody wears badges there. I said, oh, okay. All right. Well, okay. I'm in La Jolla. I said, he says, but I really don't want to farm that coffee shop. And I said, why not? He says, well, because 3/4 of the people there are real estate agents. And I went, oh, okay, I see. So 3/4 of them, how do you know that? And he says, well, because I just know who they are. And I said, all right, so what you're telling me is that 1/4 of them, and we're talking about a high traffic area, 1/4 of them are not real estate agents. And he says, yes. And I said, okay, well, do you talk to those people? He says, well, no, I don't want to bother them. I said, well, okay, all right, now you're starting to sound like an island to me. And I want to get you out of that. So you won't wear a badge, but nobody else there's wearing a badge either. So that 1/4, that 25% of the people that are there have no idea that the 75% of the people are real estate agents, right? They have no idea, right? And none of them are picking them off, right? And so you could literally be picking them off. And so I said, I think you really need to, wear your apparel. I'm wearing, Burke logo. That's what I do. I'm a billboard when I walk around, and you should get the logo, folks. I mean, you should get maybe not this logo. You get whatever logo, but I'm telling you, get shirts, get things that you can wear. And I've been buying these shirts are like $12, and I've been buying them from a group called Queensboro for a decade or more, a few decades maybe. So, but you got to be a billboard. And so anyway, so here's this guy sitting in this coffee shop. Nobody knows he's in real estate. He knows the 25% that aren't, and he's not talking to any of them, right? And so I said, well, okay, how about this? And so I've tried this on people before who are really quiet, and this guy's not necessarily quiet, but I said, how about this? We're going to get you a laptop. You've got a laptop. I'm going to get you a cover for the laptop that says, ask me a real estate question. And he just looked at me like I had two heads, right? It was like, well, what's the problem with that? He says, well, that's kind of stupid. And I go, well, why do you think it's stupid? Well, because then people are going to know I'm in real estate. And I sat there and I thought for a second, and I thought, well, I'm not sure if I can help you because you know what? You're really coming up with all the reasons why you can't succeed. And I need to hear more of you can succeed. Does that make sense, everybody? Kind of an important concept. Okay. But I want you to be visible. He was in the right place, but he was not in the right frame of mind. Okay, so right place, wrong mind. He didn't have that dialed in. Okay, so and what I said earlier, I'd sit down at the coffee shop in Del Mar, 15th Street, Camino Del Mar. Everybody knew who I was. The mayor came in one day and said, there's the news is going to call you because this thing just happened up in Solana Beach, and they're more likely to call you than they are to call me. And sure enough, they called me, asked me what was going on. Unfortunately, he had just told me what happened. So you want to be that guy or that gal. Okay, all right. So and you got to be there wherever it is on a regular basis. And maybe if you're someplace where you don't want to be, but you have another place you do want to be, maybe you take care of the place you're in now. I've helped quite a few agents who said, I really don't like where I live. I want to live over there. Okay, well, but I can't afford over there. All right, so let's build where you are right now, and then you can leapfrog into the other place and you'll have germinated this one so that it's producing results for you. Is everybody good with that? Kind of an important concept, all right? So let's talk about being very visible. So are you doing open houses? And I know, so listen, I'll be honest with you, having been management, we have this list of things we would tell people to do, when they came into the office and they said, I'm just not making it, I'm not being successful, what do I do? And so we would go through this list, open houses, cold calling, dialing for dollars, whatever. We'd go through this list. Well, that was how we got rid of you, right? That was how we said to you that we don't, you got to do something. But interestingly enough, probably 99% of the people that I speak with don't do it. So open houses, let's start with that, because I think open houses are really good. As opposed to floor time, and I don't even talk about floor time in this presentation because most of the brokerages have pretty much stopped floor time, and I think we can blame the internet on that, because people are looking up property and doing things like that, so they really don't want to go into a real estate office where somebody's going to capture them and make them buy a house they don't want to buy. I think that's bad logic, but okay. I made the most of my money that I ever made. I always made before 7 o'clock in the morning, and so people go, "Wow, that's really weird." I mean, you mean you get up at 7? And I go, "Oh, no, I'm up at 4, okay, but I sleep between 1 and 4. So for me, 4 o'clock, I want to see the sun coming up. So I would be in the office at 5:30, 6 a.m. Sun's making its way up, and people would be coming by and they're looking at the flyers, and I'm talking to them, whatever it is. Yeah, if you don't have an office, and my office was on Camino del Mar, so busy drag, right? And so, but be someplace where people are at that hour, because the really successful people are up moving around, okay, at that period of time. So, but let's talk about open houses for a second. So open houses, so you need to prepare for the open house, okay? And so the open house itself is really anticlimactic. And so people say, what do you mean by that? I said, well, by the time the open house comes, I've already done all of that I need to do to generate business for this coming week. I mean, the open house is just a place for me to get, paperwork done, call people, talk to people, get around. I'm just doing what I always love to do, that kind of thing. But you got to prepare for it, and you got to market it, and you got to do that in advance. And you got to set a schedule of what you're going to do. And there's all kinds of theories about that. Like, I've had some people that have said, I do an open house for 20 minutes and then I do another one, down the street for 20 minutes, but they're advertising each one of these, by the way, so that everybody can expect they'll be at this house, then at this house, then at this house. And that's an interesting concept. I've never really tried it myself, but I assume it's successful. But I have a whole, I just finished taping Open House Success last week. And so, I thought it really was a great webinar. And you can go to the YouTube website, you can watch it. And again, I'm not selling you anything. There's no commercials, just go and watch the video. And I think you can make a lot of money out of open houses. So, but open houses are part of the picture of my farm right now. So I want to prepare, I want to market it in advance, and I have to show up. Okay. So, they're coming into my office at, 1:15 on a Sunday, and I'm asking them, what are you doing? They say, well, I'm getting ready for the open house. I said, what time is your open house? They say 1 o'clock. I said, well, you blew it, because, it's 1:15 and you're not going to make it there before 1:30. And then of course at 3:45, they're back in my office, putting the signs away, excuse me, and doing that kind of thing. It's like, why'd you leave the open house early? Well, nobody was coming in. No, you left it early because you knew traffic was going to start picking up. So take my word for this. If you're going to do open houses, do it when others aren't doing open houses, okay? That way you don't have to worry about people picking them off before they get to you. I always told people that if you're going to do an open house, if you're going to do them on Sunday, do them from 10 to 1, 4 to 7, okay? Now, as it gets dark earlier, and we're heading to the winter equinox here, where it'll be the shortest day of the year. It's still 24 hours, by the way. I had to explain that to Linda, but it's a 24-hour day. But it's just less hours of light and more hours of dark, and so and that's we freak everybody out by moving the times and stuff like that. But time zone changes, but it shouldn't impact you in any way. We would always hold their open houses from 10 to 1. We found we got an immense amount of traffic, and then at 1 o'clock it would start to quiet down a little bit. So for those people getting to the open house at 1:15, it's over, right? And then we would take a break. We would go to the beach for a couple of hours, and about 4 o'clock we'd come back. Now remember that 1 to 3 that we weren't there was when everybody else, if they were doing an open house, was doing their open house. But for us, we come back at 4 o'clock. They've already gone back to the office, put signs away, and we got them coming in. And sometimes we wouldn't get out of there by 7 o'clock. Sometimes we'd be there at 8:30, 9 o'clock at night, because they would just keep coming. Okay. All right. Question. Got a good one here. Anonymous. Hi. Is it possible to have more substance and fewer stories? Yes, absolutely. Linda says I tell a lot of stories. Okay. So I'll speed it up a little bit. I have to anyway, but thank you for that. Okay. So social media, get all of your stuff on social media and get it ahead of the open house. Don't advertise it the day of the open house. All right. So you want to do it on Friday, on Saturday, on Sunday. Yard signs. You've got to have yard signs if you're going to do an open house. Now, we have a theory that you're going to get one good customer out of every one yard sign. So I think you should buy your yard signs in blocks of 20. You get a discount, stuff like that. But get a whole bunch of yard signs and be prepared to put those out. We had a guy in Temecula who, one of our agents, he had 500 signs. He would put 500 signs out. He would start a couple days before. And then by the time he got to the day of the open house, he had all these agents helping him at the open house and then collecting referral fees from them, from all the traffic that he got. Well, it looked like he owned the whole town, right? Because he had 500 signs out. Okay. All right. And by the way, your signs, make sure they're DRE compliant. Okay. So there's a really good article on the DRE website about what has to be on your open house signs. Okay. All right. Word of mouth. You need to get the word out that you're going to be doing an open house. Let everybody know. I think you should walk the neighborhood, knock on doors, get people to invite them to the open house. The people on the corners, you want to ask them if you can put a sign in their yard on Sunday or Saturday, whatever day you're doing your open house. Okay. But you got to be constantly marketing. All right. Door knocking. So that was my really quick soliloquy about open houses. Let's talk, and we have a lot to talk about. So let's talk about door knocking. I'm a big believer in door knocking. Wear your logo apparel. Again, you'll notice that both of these activities are very active activities. They're in front of people who, that you want to make eye contact with. Okay. All right. Wear your apparel. Let everybody know what you do for a living. Don't be a secret agent. Okay. All right. And I mentioned Queensboro. I mean, there's a lot of people out there. Costco used to do the embroidered logos for a period of time. It was the one out of Vegas. No, there you go, Costco. I put that in there too. So carry your farming list on a clipboard. So, if you're going to farm an area, you need to have a farming list. You can do that yourself by going to CRS tax data, create your own farming list. You can call your friendly neighborhood title company. They'll do it for you. If they do it for one, they have to do it for all. They can't charge for it. But again, that's a great way to get a list that you're going to take notes on. And the reason I have it put on a clipboard is because it makes me look like a survey taker, so that I'm not looking like, somebody trying to sell something or something like that. So carry your farming list on a clipboard with, obviously you have a pen, and if you've got the list of all the names and the addresses of people, I usually say put that, make sure it's in like an Excel format, and then you can take notes on that page as you learn things. You're always going to want to learn names, because the name on the tax record may not be the name of the person who's occupying the property. So you got to get that information. Okay. So make it look like you're conducting a survey. All right. So by the way, on your clipboards are like $5 at Costco. And you can have your logo put on the back of them. That's always a good idea. And bring along items of value. And I get that from Brian Buffini, and he's had some really great ideas. And so you can buy a lot of little things that don't really cost a lot of money, but people do appreciate having them. I had a gal by the name of Kylie, who was working in our office, who would go out and buy a big thing of Hershey's Kisses, and then she would wrap them and put them on staple the kisses to a card that said, my open house is this Sunday. It's from this time to that time. Wanted to invite you to it. And so when people would open the door, she would hand that to them. They would eat the Hershey's, that kind of thing. So, I thought that was a great idea, way to do things. She got pretty good traffic at her open house, but it's an item of value. I mean, how much did Hershey's Kisses cost you, right? I was speaking with a trainer the other day who I used to knew really well in San Diego, and she said, because I always said, bring gift cards, like bring $5 gift cards, for a coffee shop, whatever coffee shop that is. And her comment was, you don't need gift cards, get lottery tickets. Give everybody a lottery ticket. ticket, but staple your business card to it. Then that way they'll always remember who it was that gave them the lottery ticket in case they win $1 million. Okay. All right. So garage sales. Let's talk a little bit about garage sales. So you need to make them a community event. And I think if you're going to do garage sales, here's the challenge you're going to face. And that is you're going to probably end up becoming known as the person who does garage sales. So, again, you're looking for your niche. You're looking for something that separates you from the rest of the group. Okay. And so if you're doing garage sales, you're definitely going to be an early morning person. You're definitely going to be having people help you at the garage sale. And it will definitely become a community event. You contact all the neighbors and you say, hey, I'm having a garage sale on Saturday. Do you have anything you'd like to sell? And then I'll get, you price it, put a sticker on it, whatever. Then obviously you're going to have somebody there helping you just to kind of police things. And I know because I see the garage sale ads sometimes and they say 6 a.m. in the morning and yet people are there at 5. So, you got to be prepared to start early. Okay. So and I think you should ask the neighbors for help, get them involved in it. All right. So and I think you should prepare at least a month in advance. And what will end up happening is you'll have rolling months. So if you do it, for example, on Saturday, what's that? The 8th, the 9th of December, and then you do it on the 9th of January and the 9th of February. If you start doing it that way, it's going to be a lot easier to plan. And so, budget yourself as to when that time is. Costs you nothing, but you're getting up early in the morning, make coffee, whatever, be prepared to share, do whatever. Okay. But prepare it at least a month in advance. I think the garage sales are a great idea. Okay. I really do. And then put it online. A lot of these social media platforms now have places where you can put your garage sale, next door and things like that. And put it in the local school paper. I think you should put it in the school paper because now you have an opportunity to engage the students who also engage the parents, et cetera, for what they're doing on the weekend. So cold, warm calling, I call it. So two different kind of calls that you can make. A cold call is someone that you don't know at all. You're just calling them out of the random, out of the blue. Be aware of the federal do not call list. Be careful about that. Again, I've done whole classes on that, but just, if you have a business relationship with someone, or if you have a relationship with someone within the last 18 months, then maybe it really isn't a cold call. Maybe it's a warm call. But remember, your call would be, if you're not soliciting business, then it wouldn't necessarily be considered a violation of the federal do not call registry. Okay. But I'm just looking for people to talk to. I had an agent who, sorry, I'm going to tell a story. I had an agent working with me who never sold a house. All she did was call the Sunday newspaper, go into the Sunday papers and call for sale by owners. And so, at first blush, if you're trying to solicit the listing, then that would be essentially a violation of the do not call registry if their name is on the do not call registry. And you should probably assume that it is for your own protection. But she would never ask them about listing their home. She would tell them that, where are you moving to? And then she would start asking them about where that place was and why you moving and stuff like that. And then she would get deeper and deeper into the conversation. And then, can I have somebody contact you and send you some free information? And that's all she ever did. And she made a lot of money off of that. So, you don't, but if you don't call them to solicit the listing, because that's going to be a violation. But I find that if I spend enough time on somebody doing these other things, that I build enough rapport, and then they want me to come over and look at their house. And, if they invite me to the house, that's not a violation either. Right. So I'm fine going through the house. I tend to bring my listing input sheet when I do that, by the way. And then that way, when you're going through the house, you can take notes of the different things. And when they say, well, I'm not going to list with you, and you say, well, no, I know that, but if somebody calls me up on the phone, I talk to people on the phone all the time, at least I'll have some of the details about your house that maybe I can tell them about. And so, believe it or not, at the end of the day, you decide. You may end up with them asking you to list the property for sale. So again, I didn't call them with the intention to do that. I don't bring that up in the conversation. It's always about, where you're moving to. Okay. All right. Be aware of the federal do not call registry. donotcall.gov. You can go there. I find that most everybody I talk to has their name on there. And again, I used to teach this, but the fines for DNC violations are can be up to $40,000 a call, and that's just the FTC, the Federal Trade Communication, right? And then the FCC, the Federal Communications Commission. They have fines up to $16,000 per violation. So you don't want to violate that, but it wouldn't take a whole lot for you to find out. What can I do? What can I say? You can always call me. I'll give you ideas. But I can make any call and be compliant. Okay, so almost any call and be compliant. Okay, so state do not call fines, $100 up to $25,000 a call, so they can get really expensive. Okay, so dialing for dollars, it works. If you're going to do it early in the morning. There was a guy in New York that had 6,000 sales a year, and so what they do in New York is they list high rises. So they have whole high rises that they end up owning them. So instead of having a horizontal farm, they have a vertical farm, and so this guy had all these listings. And so, he was asked, about, what time do you call people? And he says 6 a.m. And so everybody lets out this big gasp, like 6 a.m. And so he was asked, what do people say when you call them at 6 a.m? And he says, good morning. And so really, okay, so good morning. So here's the gist of it is that, good morning. And he says, because busy people like busy people. So if you're getting up early in the morning, they're getting up early in the morning, and they're okay talking with you about it. And this guy's selling 6,000 homes a year, condominiums in this high rise. And so, I think we can take a lesson from that. Okay. All right. Late in the afternoon. So, when I worked with one of the brokerages in town, I had people that would come in early in the morning, and they would get in there about like 5 o'clock, 5:30, and they would work until about 9 o'clock. And then at 9 o'clock, they would leave and another group would come in. And then at 5 o'clock in the afternoon, the middle group would leave and the ones from the morning would come back, and they would stay until 8:30, 9 o'clock at night. And so here they are. I got this bracket going on, and I realized that the people that came in early and then came back late were the ones that were on what we call the leaderboard. And the leaderboard is that board that, here's my production. I'm selling a lot of houses and stuff like that. But the ones in the middle, they were just there pretending like they had a job. And I even had an agent say to me, I have to go to a physical office because I need my wife to think I'm actually going to work. And so I thought that was kind of interesting because, who are you kidding exactly? You could do that, but then are you also making money at it? Okay. All right. So I think early in the morning, late in the afternoon. Okay. Walk the little one in the stroller, I say, right? If you've got a little one, people spend all their time, with the kids, there's so much to do out there. But I think, people love babies and puppies, right? So if you've got the little one, put him or her in the stroller and go to town. Go through your neighborhood. Everybody will get to know you. Wear your logo. Talk about that. And I probably should mention, SDR has a really good. They have a program called Fast Stats. It's free to you, right? In fact, it's not even behind the firewall. So whether you remember or not, they haven't figured out how to do that yet, I guess. But literally you go in, you type in the zip code, or you click on the map of the zip code, and it gives you all the statistics about the properties, in that area, in that zip code. What the market's doing, how many homes are for sale, all that kind of stuff. It's pretty colors. I would recommend, and again, it's free and you're not paying for it. So I would recommend you print like 5 or 6 of those a morning, roll them up, do whatever, carry them with you. You're driving around your car, you see somebody, stop and say, hey, you want your Fast Stats for today? The class I do on it, I also send you how to brand them. So is to put your brand on there. And interestingly enough, they don't have that information on their website anymore, but that's what I think you should do. There's a big space up in the upper right-hand corner where you can put your logo and your telephone number and all that kind of stuff. And so if you are using that program and you want to know how to brand it, send me an email. I will send you the branding instructions gratis, without warranty of condition. But the little one in the stroller, I think, is really, really important. I'm not going to suggest if you don't have a little one, okay, then we may have some other things for you to do. But people are like, you should be proud of your kid. You should take your kid with you. Your kid wants to get outside. I've got what is it, a Christmas party tomorrow night, and it's a neighborhood party, and there's going to be 30-40 people there, and I have to rent my granddaughter for that party, and so but it's going to be great, right? Because there's going to be a whole bunch of kids and everybody's interacting with the children, all that kind of stuff, and I get a chance, the adults get a chance to sit around and talk to each other. Okay, all right. So actually, frankly, I forgot completely about it. I got to make sure I put that on the calendar for tomorrow. So okay, walk the dog. If you don't have a little one, have a dog, walk the dog. It's okay. You got to walk the dog anyway. Bring your little cleanup stuff, okay? And if you don't have a dog, borrow one. Ask somebody if you can use their dog, right? You'll take their dog for a walk. It's interesting to me, all the dog walkers that are out there, and some of them are getting paid for it, but they're always a source of attention, right? They're always somebody everybody wants to talk to and stuff like that. So puppies are best. Enjoy the great outdoors. I think you need to do that. You need to be outside. You're not going to make any money sitting in front of a computer. You're not going to make any money, watching soap operas and eating bonbons and stuff. Okay. So it is far more difficult to do what I'm suggesting in a winter in Chicago. And I got that from Joe Nigo, who is a top producing agent in Chicago. And he says, I've only got maybe 3 months out of the year that I can actually go outside. He says, the rest of y'all, you're outside all the time. But, for him, he's already established himself a great business in Chicago. He's not going to move to San Diego. You've already got it. And so we have so many outdoor activities that you can do in San Diego. Okay. All right. So let's talk next about sphere of influence. So we talked about the geographical farm. Now let's talk about my sphere of influence farm. And very simply, sphere of influence, are about the people that you know. And so we'll talk about the 3 classifications. So it's going to be people that you know, people that you want to know, and then people that you meet. Okay. And so there's going to be some special circumstances with that. So you've got people that you know that you should be talking to on a regular basis. Okay. And so like even at the open house, if you remember the open house webinar, I even said on the open house webinar that you need to be, calling people while you're sitting there, and it's not a time to waste. Your time is very valuable, and that's what you need to be doing. And if it's people that you want to know, maybe you're calling people in the neighborhood, and I don't know, I'm not a practicing attorney, but I think if you're calling people in the neighborhood off of the reverse directory or whatever, inviting them to your open house, I don't think that's a solicitation. Okay, so people that you want to know, all right, and then people that you meet, obviously people that you meet on the street or whatever, that you want to get their information. And I always tell people, when you're doing that, you always ask them for a card, always before they ask you for your card. When they ask you for your card, that means they're trying to get rid of you. Okay, listen, I've got your card. It's okay. I'll call you. It ain't going to happen. All right. So ask for their card before they ask for your card. I rarely ever carried cards around with me. I always just said, oh, do you have a card? And then I would tell them, I would say, okay, is this a good number to call you? If I see a really good property, a run, don't walk property, is this a good number to call you at to let you know that it's available, that it just came on the market? I've been in the practice of calling people in a neighborhood. Somebody else's sign showed up, and then I would call people in the neighborhood asking them if they were interested about the property that just got listed. So, which I think the listing agent should be doing, but I'm not interfering with their listing. I'm just giving information out. I'm not sending out an improper CMA or anything like that. I'm just talking to people about other properties in the neighborhood and telling them, hey, that one just came on the market. Do you have any questions about it? Maybe I can help you with that, right? Whether it's my listing or not. And boy, you know what? The listing agent should have been doing that. Okay. So all kinds of stuff, conjuring up our business. On open houses, for a second, I had an agent who was in Scottsdale, actually, who would hold open houses only on a Sunday. And she held them in this community that she lived in, which was a gated community, very well-to-do, $1.8 million, $2 million, very well-to-do community. It was guarded at the front with guards with guns, and no signs, no flyers, no nothing. And but she would lock the door because air conditioning in Scottsdale, Arizona, and she would watch sports games on TV all day at the house and lay on the couch. And so invariably I said, well, did anybody ever show up? And she said, yeah, I come by all the time. They're constantly bothering me. I'm trying to watch the game. And I'm like, well, how do they find out where you are? Well, they would come up to the front gate and they would ask the guard at the front if they were aware of any houses in that community that were for sale. And the guard would say, well, yeah, and so-and-so is holding one open right now. And so the guard would give them directions and all that. So she became memorable, obviously, to the guards at the front, right? And then they're telling people about her open house, and they become your best salespeople. When I'm holding an open house, I'm going to go to the guard. I'm going to give the guard that lottery ticket or the coffee card, and I'm going to ask them if they would remember me to people that were looking for a property in that community. Okay, and that always managed to shoot down all the people, the other agents in the neighborhood who had threatened the guard. We live here. You don't be letting other real estate agents in here. It's like, you can't do that. And so that was how I would disarm the guard, so to speak, and get and have a new friend, right? That kind of thing. Okay, so all right, so how? So to tackle your database, okay, so what does that look like? Well, there are different types of tackles. And so I put that in there. You've got passive, you've got active. There's a school of thought that, you can make money doing passive business, but sending out flyers and doing stuff like that. It is not inexpensive. Okay, so I personally think the active part, sitting in front of people doing things, I think that's the part where you really make your money. Okay, but what's the difference between the two? So we'll talk about passive for a second. Things that you do in the hopes of having people contact you. So again, my flyers are a good example, but I'm going to show you how to create your own business. And I sold 40 homes in 1 year in Del Mar, and I had a broker come into the office going, "Oh my God, I can't believe you did that." I wasn't keeping track, right? But I guess I should have been, because I was trying to keep track of how many numbers I was doing. But but again, it was flyers. That's all it was. And so, but I would send them out every. I'll show you. I'll tell you how I did it. And then you can do that too. Okay. So passive, what are the advantages of passive marketing? You get to control your time. I knew an agent who said, I made all my money as a salesperson sitting at the pool. She was a pool person. She liked to go sit out by the pool, but she would send out these mailing pieces all week that's where all of her business came from. So, okay, I guess that works. It's less time intensive, right? And you're obviously more control of your time. It could be less costly depending on what you're doing. All right. The pens, I'm not a big fan of buying pens with your logos on them. I tried that and I tried it a couple of times. And so it didn't take too many times for me to realize that they would never keep the pen. Right. They keep the Mont Blanc. Right. So that's why I learned always take the cap off, always hold that, keep that in your pocket so they're not going to walk off with a pen with no cap. But boy, I give them one of those free little clicker pens and they keep giving them back to me. So, okay, that is a way to do it. All right. So long-term investment results. So again, with that passive kind of business, I've got to be prepared to do it for a long period of time in order to pay for it, but also to expect any revenue to come from it. Okay. So it could improve your search engine optimization depending on what program you use. There are some programs out there that will actually, based on your emails and things like that they would actually improve your search engine placement. What are the cons? So what are the things that go against it? And so it could encourage laziness. I think so. You could go broke. I mean, if you're spending way too much more money on it than you're making, that's not going to be a good idea. And mistakes can be costly. And so I use as an example bulk mail. So when you're sending out bulk mail, the post office has very specific ways that they want the mail to be wrapped, the way to be addressed, the way to be sealed, things like that. So I know from experience that if you do it wrong, it all ends up in the dumpster in the back of the post office, and nobody ever knows about it because it's in the back of the post office. But you didn't do it right. So you got to hire. If you're going to do that, I would hire professional companies to do it. I have some people that do those things that I know they get done right. and then always, of course, put your address and your name on it so that you know for sure that they're going out. I had a guy, I cannot remember his name, but he worked with me about 20 years ago in a very large company, and he would go door to door knocking with a newsletter that he would create, real simple little thing, about the area, that kind of thing. And he would go door knocking with that newsletter, and he was just doing massive amounts of business. A former preacher, so he had a good voice and all that. So, and then he got so busy that he started hiring people to do that part of what he did. And of course, they didn't know anything about real estate. Most of them weren't speaking the Queen's English anyway. And he found his business just went way, 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 way down. And so he thought, I wonder what's going on. What's the difference between me putting these things on people's, in between the doorknob and the jamb of the door, and what are these people doing? Well, then he started following them around and found out they would take these breaks and throw half of the things in a trash can. So there's nothing going to replace you doing those things. But he went back to doing that again and made a lot of money. And that was kind of the secret for him, is that, you want to, if you're a people person, that's going to be really good. If you're shy, I always say, I'll get that out of you, because, shy is a difficult way to be in real estate, but it doesn't take much to make that turn. I had a partner for 15 years. She was voted the quietest girl in her high school. 3 years into the business with her, her mother, God rest her soul, said to me, he said, what did you do to her? And I go, I don't know. All of a sudden, man, she just started talking, right? And so she would ask a lot of questions. And this is the secret, is she didn't really know a lot, but she would ask a lot of questions. And I had to give her credit for that, because, she would never leave you on the offensive where you would ask a question because she knew she didn't know the answer to it, but she would ask you a lot of questions. And so that was how she got, and I'd have people come up to me afterward and they would say, gosh, your partner knows so much. And I'm like, yeah, well, yeah, sure she does. Yeah. Well, she knows a lot about you because she keeps asking you questions. Okay. So, all right. Active. Let's talk about my active method. Active is A-time things that you do. Again, actively engaged in front of people. What are the pros of active? And again, I'm a big believer in being in front of people. If I'm going to be calling people on the phone, I'm probably going to want to call from a public place. If I'm working on a program or something, I'm probably going to be wanting to do that in a public place. I just find that people don't come by and knock on my door at my home and say, do you know a real estate agent? They just don't do that. And so, I've had people that I've worked with in real estate that I'd hired who were very passive, very quiet. And so I remember one, I was at the coffee shop, and they were with me at the coffee shop, and I'm running essentially a mini class with them. And so people would come by and people would come by with the baby in the stroller. Well, if you know anything about, these doors are just not made for strollers. I mean, there's just one door. And so I would get up and I would go hold the door open, and people would go in. They would thank you very much. I'm wearing my badge, I've got my logo going on, all that kind of stuff. And so finally, this young man says to me, he says, why do you keep doing that? We're trying to carry on a conversation here. And I said, well, I don't know, maybe your mama didn't raise you right, but I always was told to hold the door for the ladies, especially when they're pushing the stroller. And of course it could be guys, whatever, but they're pushing the stroller, and it's very awkward to try to reach around and get that door. And he says, I noticed that every time you do it, you always do it so that your badge leans forward. And I said, yeah, that's kind of the principle behind having the badge on the left, shake the hands with the right, that kind of thing. I always want to make it so that my badge is really, really obvious to people. And so, at a certain point, I threatened him that if he didn't start doing things, that I was going to put balloons on the back of his chair. And so he started talking to people, and he did okay. Then there's another trick, and I'm going to talk about that in a minute. I'll bring that up in a second. It's really easy. It's really inexpensive. But again, I want to be in a public place. That's the whole point. Okay. All right. So greater return on your investment, immediate results, or at least you'll know if you have results, right? You're pretty much going to know, you've got about 15 seconds to bond with someone. They're going to make a decision if they want to work with you within about 15 seconds. That's true for a listing, true for a sale, true for a lot of things in life, right? It's that eye contact, that kind of thing. And so again, always successful for me, but you're going to know right there on the spot. All right. So it's more systematic. Okay. Because you got to get up in the morning, you got to leave the house. All right. It's a time management issue, which we all need to pay attention to that, right? We all need to pay attention to our time management because we all have the same amount of time. I got the same 24 hours that you do. I bet you I just do different things with my 24 hours. Okay. So it's a job. And if you think about it like a job, it feels like a job. It produces results like a job. The pay is better, right? I mean, yeah, it's a job. And so people get into this business, and I always, why are you in real estate? Well, I want to make $1 million my first year. The person that tells me that, I'm often hoping that they'll make it. But if you think you're going to make $1 million your first year, then and maybe you will. I mean, I was making really good money in my practice. I still do, but you're not going to make that money unless you're actively involved in your business. And so the pay is better. But as I've got a young man right now that I'm coaching, and I told him, I said, and he's just killing it. He got his license 3 months ago, and he's just killing it. And I said, it's because you make yourself available for the opportunity. So when opportunities present themselves, he latches onto it. And he's very credible. He's good with people. And again, if those are skills you don't have, take the Xerox training course. There's a lot of courses out there, how to win friends and influence people. There's all kinds of really good books. I have a book list that I put together. If you want it, send me an email. I'll send you the book list. But at the end of the day, seriously, this young guy is going to just make a fortune, and it's because he's really personable. He's really good with people. So you got to that. Sometimes if you don't have that, maybe it's an acquired trait, right? So so the pay is better, but you got to be busy. You got to be doing things. It's great exercise. You got fresh air. What are the negatives to it? Well, it requires some organizational skills, right? So, if you get, when I was management again for this company, one of the biggest ones in San Diego, and I would have, I got to a point where I'd grown the company so big that I really only had about 15 minutes for each agent within the company. And so they would line up outside my door. And so, because they didn't want to miss their turn, because if you did, you had to wait 2 weeks for you to come back in again. So, I would ask them, I say, bring your calendar. I want to see what you do. And they say, what do you mean? I say, well, I want you to write down those things that you absolutely do every day. Like I take the kids to school at 8:30 in the morning and I'm home by 9. Okay. I think that that's a good marketing opportunity. Okay. But tell me what you do, and then I will work with the blank spaces on your calendar and give you something to do. And a lot of times, people are busy, right? You're all very busy, but I'll bet you that we could probably find 2, 3, 4 hours a day where you're looking for something to do. Now, I'm never looking for anything to do, right? Linda will tell you I'm always doing something. I've spent my entire day doing things. I'm going to be on a phone with a bunch of attorneys, when we're done with this, about 4:30. So I've always got things, in the calendar moving forward. My worst day is the one where there's nothing on my calendar, but that's because I know how to keep busy. I know how to do the things that produce results. And so again, give me your calendar. I'll give you some things to do, and it'll be things you like to do. It doesn't have to be painful. Okay. All right. It requires consistency to get good results. You got to keep doing, the things that work consistently. If you're doing, mailing pieces and it's not working, and you've tried it for a very long time and it's still not working, take a look at the neighborhood. Is there a high turnover rate in the neighborhood? I had an agent who was, knocking on doors in a community where everybody was 80 years plus. And so she said to me, I'd knock on the one door, and then I would go to the next door. I'd knock on that door, and then the first door would answer. I'd go back to that door, talk to them. And then the second door would answer. I'd go back and talk to them. And so I thought it was pretty funny. But she said, yeah, they're 85 years old. It was taking them a while to get to the door. So I kind of used that as leverage by going to the next door and then going back to the first one and talking to them when they got to the door, and it worked out really well for her. So, be creative, but you got to be consistent. So she kept working the same thing. On the issue of open houses, you hold an open house in Bonsall, and then you hold the next one you hold in Del Sur, right? Or you hold it open in Escondido. I mean, be consistent. Do these things in the same place all the time. If you're doing a crossing pattern throughout the county of San Diego, you're not going to get consistent results, and people are not going to get to know who you are. I had a guy, first name was Mel, and this goes back 30 years, and he would put up 25 signs in Del Mar, and he knew that half of them were going to get pinched by the city, but he would put all these signs up, and he said people at some point got to thinking that he actually owned the entire place because nobody else was putting signs out. So those are the kinds of consistent things that he would do every weekend, and he got a lot of business from that. Okay, so there's also not as much free time because you're out actually actively working your business. All right, so could be dangerous. I'm concerned about your safety, things like that. So could be scary. But what? Well, let's try this, and I'm gonna let you in on my secrets. So here's your homework assignment, okay? And if you just do this one thing, so here's your homework assignment. Excuse me. First of all, any questions so far? I might get you out of here. I think I'm gonna get you out of here early today. But this is a big one. Okay, so here's what I want you to do. Mailing pieces. Okay. I don't want you to send out 12,000 mailing pieces. All right. Okay. I want you to be able to eat this month. I want you to pick up a reasonable. When I started my mailing pieces, I did 300 homes. Okay. Now, granted, I did that in the early 2000s, and God, I was making a fortune. I was doing other stuff too. I wasn't just doing that. I was doing the other things I've been talking to you about here today. But I would send out those mailing pieces. And so what would I do? They were always postcards. I never put them in an envelope, right? Because I felt like envelopes would get pitched, especially if you're putting like a bulk mail stamp on there or a mailing label, or you're printing labels for the names. And my handwriting is horrible. People said I should have been a doctor instead of a lawyer. So, I would pay the kids from the high school, with really good handwriting, I would pay them to address envelopes for me. Okay. And so, I don't know what that would cost today, but I found that it was really reasonable, given the return on my investment. And so I always did postcards because the mailing pieces didn't work. So, and I ask you this question, when you open your mail, where do you open it? You're probably opening it in front of the, over the trash can. Most people do. Okay. So you got, if you're sending a mailing piece, you probably got maybe 6 seconds. Okay. And so, I understand that first one may not produce a lot of results for you, but what are they going to do? They're going to go through the mail, pitch. I'm sending, window companies and tree removal companies and excuse me, all these things. And I'm pitching them right away, right? That's what I do. I assume you do the same thing. So in Del Mar, we have this huge recycle bin that's not even really provided by Del Mar. It's provided by another vendor who takes it off and recycles it. But I sit there, watch the people that I go in and get my mail out of the PO box there, and then I watch them pitch it. I'm pitching it, doing all that kind of stuff. So be aware of that. That's why I do postcards, because postcards, they can look at it and then there you go. Interestingly enough, I had a student 25 years ago who put me on his mailing list. And then one day I just got so tired of getting this, I forgot completely who he was. So I sent him an email and I said, stop sending me these postcards. And he comes back, he says, oh my gosh, and I just crushed this poor guy. And he says, you told me that I could always put you on my mailing list, as one of your students. And I go, oh God, you did. And so now I get them again, and I'm very appreciative of it. And it's a very good piece, but I really never even looked at it. But the point is this: I want postcards. Okay. I want you to do postcards, not envelopes. I want them double-sided. I want you to send one piece a week. Okay. Now listen to what I'm saying. I want you to send one piece a week for 8 weeks. Okay. And this is what I did. All right. So one piece a week for 8 weeks. Now, mind you, remember what I said earlier? You got about 6 seconds. And so the first time, pitch. Second time, pitch. Third time, pitch. They're keeping it a little bit longer each time, and they're getting the sense that, hey, this is something that's coming into my box every day, and this is a consistent thing. I have a PO box because I put all my property, excuse me, all my property addresses go, all the mailing pieces and everything goes to my PO box. I don't have anything come to my house. Okay, so all my mailing pieces go to the post office box, and I do that because I want to see who's sending out mailing pieces. I am shocked, and nobody is sending out mail. I don't get anything from anybody now, unless they're going through and they're calling the database. They go, oh, there's that Kevin Burke character. He's been a broker for 1,000 years. He's not gonna, he won't even die, right? And so, but that's what I do. I go through it, and I go down to my PO box to find out who's sending out stuff. I'm going to tell you folks, nobody's doing this. Okay. So I'm going to send one piece a week for 8 weeks. And then I'm after that, that's 2 months, by the way. Okay, so that's 8 pieces. Okay. Then I'm going to do 1 piece a month for 10 months. So what does that come out to? That's a year. I told you a year, right? So it's a year. So you 1 piece a month for 10 months, that's 10 plus 8, that's 18 mailing pieces. Can you do that? And I don't want you to send it to, like I said, 5,000 people. You'll go broke, because you got to do this regular like. Okay. So when I did it, I only did 300 homes. All right. And so frankly, you don't even need to do that. You don't even need to, in Del Mar, you don't even need to live there. You can send everybody a mailing piece. Okay. And nobody's doing it, folks. I'm telling you that. I live there. I know nobody's doing it. Okay. So, but this is the secret. And by the way, there's a little bit more to this. So if you want to have somebody help pay for it, you can hook up with a lender normally, because they're the ones with, that seem to have access to funds. But the lender, if they're going to advertise on your piece, they can pay for only the amount of the piece that they cover. Okay, so for example, if one side is you and the other side is them, they can only pay for half of it. Okay, so if your pieces are costing you $100 a month, $100 a month to send them out, then they can pay 50, you can pay 50, but you get one side, they get the other side. It has to be equivalent to the value that they're getting for it. Now, of course, the way I always set it up, they get the side that has the address and indicia on it and all that, and the stamp and everything like that. But they get half, I get half. Okay, does that make sense? All right, so that would be my suggestion. And that again, you can scoff at it, maybe, but I sold a lot of houses off of that. Okay, all right. So that being said, that's a big secret. And again, if most people that I know try to tackle more than they should. It's the old, how do you eat an elephant? One bite at a time. But I think if you take on too much, I don't want you to go broke. I want you to make money at this. Okay, but don't plan on a result the first week. It's going to take a while. But this is how I did it. Okay, and they have a lot of really good mailing programs out there. There's a couple of them that specialize in real estate agents. Everybody likes to get the real estate agents money. I always say that during the 1848 gold rush, Linda thinks that I was actually at that gold rush, but in the 1848 gold rush, the people that were making the money weren't the miners. The people that were making the money were the people with pickaxes and the jeans and things like that. Those are the ones that were making all the money. So so people are making money off of us. So we have to be careful what we buy into to make sure that we get a good return on our investment. Okay. All right. So this is my advice. This is what I would do. But again, I don't want you to go broke. Okay. All right. That's a total of 18 pieces. Okay. But that's 18 pieces per household. So if you've got, 100, then that's what, 180 pieces, right? No, that'd be 10. So 1,080 pieces. Okay. Right. Okay. All right. So can you do that? I think that's a great way to do it. And again, you should have it automated. There's all kinds of services that people would do. I've got mailing companies that'll do it for you, stuff like that. Again, I don't make any money off of it. Send me an email. I'll send you my list. We have an approved vendor list. A lot of attorneys on it, by the way. So, as I do a lot of business with the legal profession. So anyway, let me know if you want the list. I'll give you a bunch of people. Okay. Keep the numbers down. Don't get crazy. I remember I was talking to a broker who said, I said, I think 300. He says, oh no, 3,000. I said, 3,000. I mean, I don't know what postage is, but I'm going to bet you're going to pay somewhere just barely south of a buck a piece, right? And I think if you're sending out 3,000, do you have money to spend $3,000 a week for 8 weeks and then 3,000 a month for the rest of the year? I think that's you're doing well, right? Maybe you're already selling houses. I don't know. But, I try to keep it down, keep it simple. Again, remember my little fast stats thing? I'm walking around with that too, because I got that right off the SDR website. It was free. It's timely. It just makes a lot of sense. Okay. All right. So there you go. 300 to 1,000 is a good number to start with. Take your pick. Try not to go broke. It's not worth that, right? You can always add on later. I found that when I first got started, I was making so much money off of that I just started expanding the area. Okay. In fact, I got tired of working on that. So, really, literally, I do so many things now that are different from that. But when the results oops, I got to move my screen, when the results start pouring in, obviously. So grocery stores, let's talk about grocery stores for a minute. So dividers, those dividers that divide the items between the on the conveyor belt between the the other person's stuff. I see these all the time. I notice them. I mean, I don't get in there, scour them, or write down the phone number or anything like that, but it's kind of like my adopt a highway sign, right? It's like that's not the purpose behind it. The purpose behind it is to constantly have that what do we call that, subliminal seduction, that real quick little spot of something, like the Top Gun movie with spilling the coffee tray and it says drink Pepsi on it, that kind of thing. And it was just one frame, but it's meant to, your eye will catch it even though the rest of you won't. So those little dividers are not a bad deal. I don't do them personally, but but they serve the purpose. I looked at it, I saw it, and so if I was looking for for that kind of thing to do, that's what I would do. And so we'll talk about bus benches in a minute too. The grocery carts, I know people that do the grocery carts. Normally they're very prohibitive. If you're going to Ralph's or Vaughn's or something like that, or I think we're still calling it Vaughn's. But the grocery cart, if you've got the grocery carts, you're the only one. Nobody else can get the grocery carts in that area. Same thing with the dividers, by the way. So so okay, I got the corner on that market. Is it going to be inexpensive? Probably not, but that is a way to spend your money if you have it. And so I remember talking to an agent who spent a lot of money on bus benches. And we'll talk about bus benches in a second, but spent a lot of money on bus benches. And so I said, well, where did you get the money? I mean, has it produced any results for you? And he says, well, not really, but it was what do they call it? Conspicuous income. It was money that I had left, or discretionary income, money that I had left over at the end of the year. And I would budget for that in advance. So he said, I knew I had to make this many phone calls. I knew I had this many appointments, this many listings, this many sales. He said, I had my whole thing all tracked out for the whole year. And there's tons of those programs out there that you can do that I knew how much money I was going to make at the end of the year. And so, it's a great way to do business. He's serious about what he's doing. Okay. I mean, he was only doing 822 deals a year. And that was here in San Diego. So, but the bus benches was always the last money he had that he just kind of spent on something. He said, did I get a lot of traction on it? No, I got more traction on other stuff, but it was money I had budgeted for anyway by the end of the year. Okay. All right. So there you go. Bus benches. So, again, I've seen people do that. I always kind of figured that I remember asking an agent, I said, well, people are sitting on your bus bench. And so people that drive by can't see you, and said, well, yeah, but that's only for a few minutes while the bus is getting there. And then it empties. And it's a cycle all day long. And I thought, wow, okay. So always in a high traffic pattern area. Apparel, I mentioned that earlier, folks, this is not expensive stuff. Okay. But everybody remembers who you are. Okay. And that's the important thing. So I remember I was at the Vaughn's in Del Mar, and I'm the only guy there. I just finished teaching a class up at Miracosta in Oceanside, and I'm heading home, and I'm picking up, dinner at 10 o'clock at night. Nobody's in the place, right? I grabbed what I needed to grab. I'm at the counter, and I'm going through looking for my Vaughn's card, and this is not a shameless plug for Vaughn's, but anyway, I hear this voice that says, "So how's the market?" Right? And I go, wow, that's classic, right? I always say, you always have a response to how's the market, because you're always going to get that question, especially if they know you're in real estate. And I'm like, where's that coming from? Well, it's coming from the cashier. Okay. Now I'd known this guy for years, right? Super guy. And so, but I never ever talked to him about real estate. Right. And so one day I'm sitting just him and me in the store. And I hear this voice, and I wasn't thinking that it was him. It's like, how's the market? And so I looked at him. So, I ended up selling him a house, right? I mean, it's because, but there I was. I'd missed the opportunity all that time. But when the opportunity presented itself, I was ready to seize it. Okay. And so here he is. But how did he know I was in real estate? Because I'm wearing the logo. Okay. So you need to be, and I get people say, well, I wear silk, and so, I can't put the pins through it. I just go and get the shirt. Right. But I get it. You got to look fashionable or whatever, but these are comfortable shirts. Right. But so I ended up investing heavily in magnets, right? So that, because people would do the magnet before they would do the pin, but you got to have something. I had an agent that I was coaching, and I said, she went through all the reasons why she wasn't making any money. And I said, do you wear a badge? And she says, no, I never wear a badge. And I go, why not? She goes, because everybody knows the only people who wear badges are realtors. And I'm thinking, that might not work out for us, right? Because that's obviously the reason you would want to wear a badge, right? And the reason nobody else is wearing them is because they don't think it's, they're not proud of what they do. And so, needless to say, I don't coach her anymore. Okay. All right. Okay. So, apparel, we talked about that. Do you wear a name badge? We talked about that. Are you memorable? All right. So, Linda says, whenever I'm in a room, somebody invariably is going to put a microphone in my mouth. I always ask, how much time do I have to talk? And then they say 4 minutes, and Linda laughs. And she says, it takes them 4 minutes to introduce himself. So I just kind of think that's right. So are you memorable? Are people going to remember who you are? And you don't have to have a whole bunch of annex going on or anything like that. But listen, you do need to know how to answer the question, how's the market, right? And so market's always been good for me. I'm always helping people. People say, is it a seller's market? I don't care. I mean, I'm going to help people buy and sell houses regardless of the market. And that's what I'm here to do. I'm here to help people. So you have to tell people you're going to help them rather than I'm going to sell you something. Okay. All right. So personalized logo on everything. I'm a big believer in that, especially the clothing. Car, by the way, well, we'll talk about cars. So shirts, bags, pens, other handouts or giveaways. Again, Brian Buffini's items of value, lunch boxes, whatever. Excuse me. Sorry. A little dehumidifier or humidifier going on here. Okay, so lunch boxes. What does it cost to wrap a car? Now, I haven't checked recently, but the last time I did this, I wrapped the car. I got a lot of calls off of that. All right, most of them were, "Would you please slow down on the road?" That kind of thing. But when you wrap your car, it actually improves your driving because I realize everybody knows who I am, right? And so so then when I had the car wrapped, I'm trying to remember. I think I had the back window wrapped. It's like latex. I think it was like $75. I have no idea. It's probably $12 million today. But get that back end wrap. You don't have to wrap the whole car. But I see some guys out there that are really successful and just really, really good agents. But they needed that one little push that got people to pay attention to them, talk to them, because they realized they couldn't talk to everybody, and they had to want to talk to people. And so they got great logos on their cars. I mean, great wrap stuff like that. Vans, pickup trucks, stuff like that. So Greg, I mentioned Greg a while ago. Greg would go out and he would lease a van, so a moving van, a big one, not 18 wheels, right? But like a medium-sized van, big van. So for people that were moving could use it, and he would give it to them to use. If you bought or sold a house through him, you would get free use of the a local move with the van. Well, of course, he had the entire van wrapped, so the whole outside of the van was all about Greg. Title, escrow, back when you could do that, everybody kind of pitched in and everybody helped with it. And I said, "Do you make money on that?" He says, "Oh yeah, I make a fortune." So it was costing him $750 a month. And he said, nobody's going to spend $750 a month for this van. And plus, they're not going to, even if I do, I'm not going to be using it all the time. So what he would do is he would offer it in all of his advertising, free moving van, that kind of thing. They'd have to provide insurance and ID and all that. But when he wasn't giving it to a client to use it, then he would give it to the church, or he would give it to a school, or he would take it to the to a rental car lot, and then they would rent it out for him. So now he's got people driving his van around with him all over this van, and they're essentially driving around with a billboard. I mean, you look around, you got U-Haul, you got Ryder, they've got their stuff all over their trucks, right? Because they want people to remember who they are. Okay. And so, and you'll remember, and again, it improves your driving habits, hopefully your driving skills, right? Okay. So, but I don't know how expensive it is. I don't think it's incredibly expensive. And it's usually a latex or an acrylic of some kind that, peels right off. Okay. So think about that, get it checked out. I may look that up again to do my car. Well, I don't have a car. Linda lets me drive her car from time to time, so I'll have to ask her permission for that. But and then what about the tax? What are the tax implications of that? I mean, I'm pretty sure, and again, I don't give tax advice, but I'm pretty sure that that's tax deductible, okay? Because it's an advertisement, it's a marketing piece, all right? And by the way, it takes care of a lot of it. I remember I was doing an open house in Del Mar, and the city of Del Mar came by and said, "Your sign is in the right of way," and I said, the sign is halfway to the front door. And they said, yeah, well, the right of way goes to the front door. So you're telling me that the right of way, city right of way, which they can keep you from putting signs in the city right of way, goes all the way to the front. So you own the house up to the front door, but they can keep you from doing things in their right of way of that house. And so I'm like, really? So what I ended up having to do is I opened up the sunroof on my car, and I would put the open house in the sunroof pointing to the house. And so they hadn't figured out yet to have any kind of a city ordinance about that. And so I got away with it for a long time. But if I have the car wrapped, that's even better. Follow me to an open house, that kind of thing. Okay. All right. It's a billboard. Okay. It's an advertisement. It works. It does change your driving habits. When are you going to do this? So again, 24/7, you need to keep this has to be a rolling thing. I am constantly thinking about how I'm going to market myself and my company. So when you're doing things, right? So when you're doing other things, I do a lot of stuff during the day. And in fact, frankly, the classes that I teach kind of hinder that because I spend a lot of time in preparation for the classes. And so I really need to be more out with people. Lynn and I have kind of like divergent personalities. I'm in front of people. She'd rather not have anything to do with them. And so, but I can, she says I can start a conversation with lawn furniture. So you can be that way too. It's okay. All right. So, your bike club. I had a guy who he made $380,000 off of his bike club. He would literally ride up and down the coastline every weekend wearing the spandex or whatever it was, the bicycle helmet, and a bicycle, not a motorcycle, but a bicycle. And he would ride up, Oceanside down to Imperial Beach and back again. And he says, I sold a ton of homes off of that. And I go, really? And he says, yeah, because, everybody thinks that's a loner sport, but it really isn't. We're socializing with each other. We're talking to each other, stuff like that. I had another guy who would go surfing every day. He's out in the water, and he'd always go out at lunchtime because that's when there was a lot of people out there. But I said, what do you, half of them are high school kids. He says, no. The high school kids leave at lunchtime and go eat. These are the doctors and lawyers that want to surf. And so he would go out there and he would spend his time out there, and he would pick them up out there in the water. And I said, well, how do you give them a card? He said, I'll give it to them back at the beach. So they'll follow you. You tell a good enough story, and they'll come get your card from you. And I thought, wow, that's just ingenious. Now, folks, I would say that that's a bunch of hokey, except I knew how much he was producing. He's making really good money. Okay, so pick something that you like and then be good at it. I was chairman of the board for the Del Mar Chamber of Commerce. I was president of the Association of Realtors, and I was chair of or president of my alumni association, all in the same year. And so my business partner at the time said, when are you going to do real estate? And yet we were doing a lot of deals, right? And so she didn't identify the fact that the public figure was making all the money. The people that are putting themselves out there are the ones that are doing really, really well. Okay, so taking the kids to school. I had a gal, she had 3 children, and so she would take them to school, and she was with other mothers. They would trade off who was going to take the kids, in the vans to school. And so I got her into the habit of handing out business cards. And then the day she wasn't, and so people would say, well, what good are you going to do giving the kid a business card? Well, I give them to their parents, right? That kind of thing. And so, it's just another way to talk to people. Okay. So organize those monthly garage sales. I know we already talked about that. Car washes. How about car washes? Okay. So you see these all the time, right? You see the high schools are doing car washes and stuff like that. I think that's a great idea. And you can get them involved in it. And everything that I do for charity. And I always tell this to my sellers, right? Who if I ever have a seller that asks me to cut my commission, which never happens for some weird reason, but because I guess, I don't know, I guess they perceive value, but I do them for charity. And I tell my sellers, I say, I like to pick my charities, and you're not my charity. So, I do give a lot of money to charity. And so do them for charitable organizations. And again, you can always get the high school kids or whatever to come out and help you do that, because they're always looking for community things that they can do as well. And so, check with the high school, see what you can do there, advertise in their paper, do things like that, be part of the community. And I think car washes are a great way to do it. You're not there to make money on the car wash. You know that, right? That's not the idea. And they're giving the kids the money for the car wash because the kids are doing the car wash, but you're the organizer of the event. And you're the one running around talking to everybody at the event. And there's tons of distractions going on. So, you don't have to feel like you're the center of attention. Okay. All right. So car wash is a pretty good idea. I would consider doing that. Let's take a look here. Coffee shops. I've already talked about that. I don't drink coffee. Oddly enough, I'm not allowed to drink coffee, but I do drink a lot of tea. So I literally will go to, I guess I'd like to call it a tea shop, but coffee shop seems to be the more common name for it. So I go to the coffee shop. I spend a lot of time working on my computer. I have a laptop cover that says, ask me a real estate question. Okay. I think I'm going to end up talking about that a little bit in a minute. So there you go. Get a decal for your laptop cover. Okay. So we all have laptops. We take them places and we really waste that space that we're advertising, what, Dell or HP or Lenovo or whatever. We're advertising somebody else's product. I mean, they figured that out a long time ago. Why are we advertising what we do for a living? Okay, so get a decal for your laptop cover. Decalgirl.com is good. Again, I don't make any money off any of this, right? And you can't click on the link, so they don't know I sent you. Skinit.com is really good. I think we're talking $40-50. You just put in the type of computer that you have. It knows the dimensions, and then you order it. And so, I always say, just put in there, ask me a real estate question, something really simple. Nothing really complicated. Somebody asked me one day, do you need your DRE number on there? I would think, I probably don't think so, but I'm just working on my computer. Yeah, I didn't realize that people were reading my laptop cover. So, I got Linda one of those early in the business because she was pretty quiet. And so about 6 months later, she's got a new laptop. And I go, what happened to the old laptop? And she said, well, you put that silly decal on there and I couldn't figure out how to get it off of there. So I had to go buy another computer. And I said, well, why'd you do that? And she says, well, because people kept stopping me and asking me real estate questions. And I thought, okay, all right. So y'all hearing this? I mean, I just think that's the way to go. So if I was looking for more business, I would be doing that. That's how I would be doing it. So just ask me a real estate question. And then just go sit someplace and do your work. Again, sitting at home and doing your work accomplishes zero. Okay. I need you to make money. I need you to do well. I need you to feel good about yourself. I need you to be successful. And I need you to be the center of the community. That's all. I want you to be the mayor. Okay. So do your computer work at the local coffee shop. She said, I couldn't get my work done because people kept stopping me. I said, well, that's your work, is the people stopping you. Okay. All right. So with the decal cover open to the room, obviously, let's talk about a coordinated attack. So I want to put all this together. So again, I'm going to try to get you out of here a couple minutes early. So your geographical farm, your sphere of influence. If you send out mailing pieces, it's got a 0.08% return on your investment. Okay. So you would think, well, that's a pretty lousy return, but let's make it so it's more productive. If you follow up with a phone call or a thank you note, okay, if somebody called you, or you talk with somebody and you send them a little thank you note. I mean, whoops. They're out of my field of view here. Sorry. But we ordered a whole bunch of little holiday cards to send out to people. It was like $25. So get some little cards made. You can do them yourself, right? But a little thank you note, with envelopes and all that. Again, you handwrite the envelope. Okay. But a little thank you note for those that you actually speak with. Okay. So maintain a database. This is critically important. Even Brian Buffini talks about, feeding your database constantly. Folks, I've got 11,000 people in my database, and I have people saying to me, listen, I'll pay you money for your database. And I can't do that because my database actually includes people's usernames and passwords and stuff. So it's definitely behind a firewall in my place here. But I've got a great database. And so what I need to do is I need to spend more time farming to my database, but I had to attract those one at a time. And so Linda says, you've got dirt on everybody. So anytime I talk to somebody or I get a business card, nowadays you can put it in a scanner and it'll load it into your database for you. So there's really no excuse. And by the way, real estate agents end up becoming good sources of information and good sources of leads as well. I can't tell you how many people that I know who have gotten out of real estate and then send me their business because they didn't realize they were really doing okay in real estate. They were just hitting that little lull in traffic when they felt like that was the end of their career. So I'm okay doing business with people that used to have a real estate license. I'm all right with that because they also understand what we go through. Okay, so create a farming kit. We talked about that in Excel format, so you can adjust the data. And so I think that, remember, that's my clipboard, all that. But get your farming kit. And again, that farming kit can be a geographical farm. It can also be a sphere of influence farm. All right. So take notes on it, especially when you're walking around the neighborhood. You got your clipboard and you got a whole bunch of your little fast stats in there with you. But take notes. Write things on it. I learned early in my career. This was another trick that I, not a trick. It was, I would write things down. People would say things to me. I would write everything down. Well, I've got a fairly good memory, fairly photographic memory, honestly, but people would tell me all this stuff and then I'd leave the room, like on a listing appointment, I'd leave the room, I'd throw it in the trash, right? Why? Because the notes, I was really only taking the notes for their benefit so that they could see that I actually cared, right? But I didn't need the notes personally because I had it in my head. Well, I learned as time went on, I started doing more and more and more business and I started making more and more contacts that I really had to keep those notes. So take notes on everything. I remember we had a guy that was doing a lot of transactions and he was on a call to somebody one day, and what he did was the call, it was the computer he was working on was projecting on a 48-inch screen up on the wall, and so I'm watching him. He's talking to them. He's got a headset going on. He opens up his Gmail account of all things. The contacts part of the Gmail account has a great big field on the right-hand side that says notes. And so he would write in notes. And so anyway, so here he is, he's talking to somebody on the phone and he's got those notes open and I'm looking at it and I'm going, oh my God, he's got the kids' names. He's got birthdays in there. He's got all kinds of stuff in there. And so here he is talking to these people. This is free, folks. This is something you don't have to spend any money on, but you got to talk to people. And so you start gathering information. Remember, you got to ask more questions, right? You ask more than you talk. Okay, so what's the old thing about you listen twice as much, you talk less than that? And again, and Linda will tell you when I'm talking to clients, I'm not this guy, right? I just ask questions, I get information, I write everything down, I make sure they see that. But here's my notes on my clipboard, and I'm writing everything down. And I'll slow them down. I'll say, hey, you know what? Hang on a second. You just said something I think is really important. Let me write that down. And so I'll slow them down. I'll actually write things down. Okay, does that make sense, folks? People don't care how much you know until they know how much you care, right? And so I'm going to take notes on stuff because it's important. And plus, here's Eric talking to them on the, he's got the thing up on the wall, and he said, "Gee, I'm so sorry, I missed, Johnny's birthday, on Saturday." He did the math really quick. It was 3 days ago. "I'm really sorry I missed the birthday. Hi Johnny, happy birthday," that kind of thing. But he would take notes on everything. So you would get birthdays, you'd get what age, where they were, where they're going to school, all that kind of stuff. So take notes one way or another, have a place where you are keeping that correspondence. Okay. So CRS Tax is a great free tool. And if you watched my video on pre-foreclosure, finding pre-foreclosure properties, you'd be really, really surprised. There's a lot of pre-foreclosures out there, more than you think. There's like 13 of them in Carmel Valley alone. So take a look at that video. That'll help you out. But I think that CRS Tax is a great free tool that you have access to in the MLS here in San Diego. So contact your friendly neighborhood title rep. They can give you, they have to give it to you. They can't sell it to you, and they have to give it to everybody. So contact your friendly neighborhood title rep and get a farming kit from them as well. Have them do it in Excel format, something that you can edit, okay? Make the fields bigger, stuff like that from when you print it. So again, get a clipboard, carry it around with you. Follow up connections, people you make contact with again, the phone call, the thank you note. If you do open houses, again, this is a coordinated attack. If you're doing open houses, follow up with a phone call, a thank you note. You getting the theme here? phone call, thank you note. Okay. If they came through the open house, I don't think you've got an issue. Again, send me an email. I'll send you my sign-in sheet that has the do not call list language on it, that allows you to call them even if they're on the federal do not call list. Send me an email. I'll send that to you. Okay. You got to tell me what it is you're looking for. Don't just say, send me all your stuff. Okay. All right. So maintain contact. It's really something. If you don't, they're never going to remember you. Okay, and so it's a really sad statistic, but NAR says that why they asked all these people that bought homes, why didn't you use the agent who originally sold you the house? And the 88% of them responded that they would work with that agent again, but they never heard from them again. They didn't remember who they were. And I think that's a sad statement, because that's really our job. And I don't know, maybe you close a deal and you think the client hates you or something went bad and somehow you're the warrantor of the product. That's not true. Turn around. And I know I've been guilty of that. When I first got started in the business, things would go bad in a transaction. It wasn't anything I did, right? But I would always take the blame for it. I would feel bad about it. But ultimately, they're calling me up. They want to go to dinner, do all this kind of stuff because they made a friend. And here I was thinking, that my feelings were hurt. Stop thinking about yourself, think about them. Okay, so you got to be talking to your clients. There are some programs out there that are absolutely free that will send them mailings once a month or once a year. I think one of the home warranty companies does that, and it's free. Okay. So, all right. So don't be a secret agent. I mean, that's my biggest thing is don't be a secret agent. Make sure everybody knows what you do for a living. Brian Buffini says, use the mayor campaign. I happen to agree with that. You need to be run around. You're running for office. Okay. So there you go. You act like you're running for office. All right. So, real estate is a full contact sport. I really think, and when I say full contact, that means you've got to be making contact with people constantly. Sitting around at home wondering why you're not selling anything is probably why you're not selling anything. Okay, so you need to be out there with people. You need to put yourself out in the public and make sure that everybody knows who you are, right? And that you do real estate for a living. Okay, so you have to be relentlessly consistent about doing the right thing right the first time. And so, folks, you've got the same 24 hours a day as I do. We don't have time to waste. We've got things we've got to do. And I very much appreciate you taking your time here today. I hope you got something out of this today. I'm starting into I have 2 more webinars next week, or 4 more, Tuesday, Thursday next week. And then I'm going to be breaking out into some shorter podcasts and things like that. I've got the prosecutor for the city of Huntington Beach wants to be on a podcast with me on real estate transactions going bad up there. I've got God knows enough lawyers that want to be on it. So we're going to be doing it up pretty good. But again, stay tuned for that. Watch for my newsletter because it'll keep you updated on it. So if you don't have time to do it right, when will you have time to do it over? And that I just think John Wooden was just a great coach. And this was a statement that he made, and I thought it was a brilliant statement. So anybody have any thoughts or questions? Anybody have anything they want to ask about? I am going to get you out of here a couple minutes early. Any questions on anything we've covered today? I'm here to help you. You can't, I'm not shy. No? Okay. All right. So seeing none, then now is a great time to ask, right? Thank you for joining us. How to master my farm and real estate. All of this stuff goes up on the YouTube website. So tonight I'll load, this morning's didn't happen, right? So tonight I will load this one up onto the YouTube website. It's free to you. Help yourself. If you've got a QR code reader on your phone, here's your opportunity to take a look at it. I'll leave it up there for a second. But this is your opportunity it'll take you straight to the YouTube website. Again, they have to clean up my language a little bit on this one before I'll be able to load it, but probably within about an hour and a half, I'll be able to put it onto the YouTube website. Same thing will happen next week. And these are all free. You just log right in, go to YouTube, whatever. You could also go to your browser, type in @Burke Real Estate Consultants, Inc. And as I said at the beginning today, uppercase B, uppercase R. So you want everybody to be able to read it. Okay. And so when I was teaching ePro, it was amazingly funny. Some of the things that the fact that you didn't make uppercase letters made it say something completely different. So I won't share those with you here today. I learned how to create bit.ly links, bit.ly/real-estate-ed. The DRE told me to do that because my classes, I have to put the general information page up on the website so that people can see it for free. So I'm having that done right now. I'll be able to put that up there, and then God willing, I'll be able to do some my continuing ed credit, that kind of thing. It'll be a sold out house. I did a talk for NAREB, and wonderful. God, they just, I'm a member of NAREB, National Association of Real Estate Brokers, and I did a talk for them up in Oakland, live in person. So it was in two parts, right? It was on the RPA. So the first part was 2.5 hours. The second part was 2.5 hours. First part, I probably had 10, 12 people in the room. Second part, I had like 30 people in the room. Why? Because all the people that were there in the morning went off, told everybody, you got to go see this guy. And we had a great time. It was fun. And so, I'm blessed in life that I get to work with some really good people. So case here is important. It's all lowercase for a reason. All right. Please remember to like and subscribe. And so I say that like, because it makes me feel good. Thank you for that. I appreciate it. But if you subscribe, then that means you're going to be kept up to date. Like, for example, the new laws that are coming out. I'm going to be posting all this stuff on YouTube. So you'll have access to all of that. If you subscribe, you don't get emails and stuff. And I don't call people's email addresses. Everything I do is opt in. You have to want to be there. But literally, it will notify you when you log into YouTube that I've posted another video. So this is a great opportunity for you to have all that. It doesn't cost you anything. I don't make any money off of it, but I do want you to be okay. All right. So and what I said in the very beginning today, I said, I got into this business in 1979. People helped me out in 1979. I'm just trying to pay that back. Okay. So if you have any other subjects you want to hear about, you're going to have to reach out to Education at SDAR. You can copy me. You can send it to me, copy them, whichever you prefer. But you got to let them know that you want something. And so, again, I got plenty to keep me busy, but I do want to help you. So please keep that in mind. Weekly email updates. I send out a weekly email blast. It goes out on Friday night. It contains links to all the classes I'm teaching. It also contains links to the new laws, the ones that are coming out in 2024. I've got links in there to the new forms that are going to be released on December the 19th. I've got links in there to the Department of Real Estate's positions on doing various things. And so the notice of default purchase agreement. So again, the newsletter is a pretty good thing to get. A lot of times it's redundant, but if you deleted it, now you can get it again the next week. So okay. So anybody have any questions about anything we talked about here today? Okay, good. Seeing none, I want to thank you for being here. I very much appreciate the value of your time. I really do. And that's why I'm letting you go a little bit early. I could filibuster now for another 15 minutes, but I'm not going to do that. So I want to thank you all for being here. I hope you have a wonderful weekend. And as I always say, from my hometown of Del Mar, I look forward to seeing you around the track. Thank you, everybody. Take time out and have a great day. Bye-bye now.